Hello and welcome back to another video. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe if you're new. We're trying to hit 500 before the end of the year. Today we are talking about David Moyes' interview with the Wrestlers Football podcast. That's done by Gary Lineker, Alan Shearer, and Micah Richards. I usually enjoy the podcast. And to be honest, I enjoyed David Moyes' interview overall. I've actually enjoyed quite a few Moyes interviews after watching. After he's left the club, I can now watch it without, having any emotional attachment, positively or negatively. But there's something I had a problem with about this interview. And I don't even know what to title this video, so by the time you see this, I've figured out a way to title it. But there was a point in the interview where, obviously, they were talking about, the typical stuff that people always ask David Moyes, about Everton and Man United and stuff. And rest in peace to Kevin Campbell, by the way. They were talking about him as well. And it then goes on to the West Ham bit, because I'm pretty sure, apart from TalkSport, where, Jeff Stelling was like, West Ham fans are really hard to please, aren't they? Because they are still daggering this narrative that, be careful what you wish for and all that. And he even got mentioned on the Alan Shearer podcast, on the Wrestlers Football podcast. Again, be careful what you wish for, right in front of David Moyes and all that. We've been through this before, of the be careful what you wish for stuff. I hope I don't have to, talk about it next season. But there was a point where I was talking about the criticism that David Moyes gets, about how Moyes deals with criticism and all that. And there was a couple of things I had to say about this. So the specific situation that went straight into Moyes' head was, in the 22-23 season, West Ham United beat Fulham 1-0 at Craven Cottage. It was the own goal, and then we defended for the rest of the game. It was that game. I didn't actually watch that game in refusal because of the game I'm about to talk about right now. This was a few days after Newcastle beat West Ham United 5-1, a game I was at, and the game where you could watch my match reaction and you could see how angry I was. Pretty much having a fucking mental breakdown over this club. And the problem with that game is, I could actually look at that game and be like, it wasn't Moyes' fault necessarily. Except he doesn't know. It didn't. We actually pressed quite high that game, and he didn't really know how to coach a press. So I can still blame your, almost set out for that game. But there was a lot of individual errors. I remember, even though I don't like Naya Faged, I remember Fabianski throwing Naya Faged right under the bus. I didn't be at fault for at least 3 of the goals for that game. And we played well for the first 20 minutes, and then they scored 2 goals. And then it was like, what's the point? What's the point? I gave up there and then. It was like, well, the game's done now. We played well, we didn't put the ball in the back of net, and we conceded 2 goals. Obviously, some of the substitutions were very dumb in that game. But a lot of mistakes from people like Fabianski, people like Zuma, people like Kera, etc. But the problem is that obviously fans are going to get frustrated, fans are going to boo, fans are going to leave. There's a literally midweek game, a late game, and we lose 5-1 at home. David Moyes criticised the fans in an interview. Literally criticised them for leaving. You could go back and have a look. The next game where we beat Fulham, there's a Moyes out banner. And it says, Moyes out, and they go past it right at the end. Even though we won the game, and fans were getting behind the team, fans were very vocal about what they thought. And I was Moyes out at the time as well, but I was very like, Moyes out at the end of the season, end on a high, because I knew we were going to win the Conference League. Even though I was nervous on the day, of course. But Moyes, speaking of the Conference League, in the press conference before the final, Moyes talks about that banner again. I remember fans being like, I felt sorry for him when he was talking about that. I don't, because I remember the context. You criticise the fans, you're going to get that put on you. Do you want people to be on your side or not? You cannot use that now as a thing of unjust of criticism when we was literally in a relegation battle that season and we lose 5-1 at home. Oh, by the way, we lost 6-0 at home. Literally, the season just gone. And it all comes round in the circle, because on the Rest is Football podcast, we were lectured by Lineker and Shearer about be careful what you wish for. Oh, and some new information, by the way. No wonder why Alan Shearer was sticking up for David Moyes so much, because Alan Shearer suddenly reveals in his interview that Moyes was helping him with his coaching badges. I mean, we know the culture of this media stuff anyway. Every manager is a god, and you can't say anything against this manager because you just can't. There's not really a reason for it, is it? But because a manager is at your club or wherever you support, that you're not allowed to judge them. Well, let me flip it back on you. You also shouldn't be constantly false positive about every manager either. Could you imagine if no football club sacked their manager? Jesus Christ. We were lectured on that podcast when we lost 6-0 to Arsenal about be careful what you wish for. And Alan Shearer literally said in today's thing about Moyes helped him with his badges. When he was doing his badges, and Moyes helped him. And we know it with TalkSport, they're closely aligned with David Sullivan. So they're just going to back whatever, happens with David Sullivan. They're not going to back West Ham or anything. They'll downplay West Ham, but they'll back anything to do with David Sullivan, as David Sullivan likes to leak things towards TalkSport. So there's the first point gone. Apparently, you're allowed to get battered 5-0 by Fulham, 6-0 by Arsenal, 5-2 by Crystal Palace, 5-0 by Chelsea. Apparently that's allowed to happen. We're not allowed to complain, guys. Not allowed to complain. And Gary Lineker also said, it's not like they were in a relegation battle. Oh, yes, because we have to wait until we are in a relegation battle to want a manager out because of past situations. You're not allowed to raise your standards in this country because, you're not allowed to wish for anything more. You're not allowed to. And the reason why you're not allowed to wish for anything more is because you're seen as ungrateful. In other countries, you're seen as, having a winning mentality. In this country, it's ungrateful. Just, be content with what you have. And that's a mentality that this country has outside of football as well. This is why England win fuck all, because I'm sure the On the Rest is Football podcast, when England underachieve once again, that podcast is going to somehow manage to flip it and stick up for Gareth Southgate. I love Michael Richards, I think Michael Richards is class. But it's like when Rashford was going on a bad run of form, Michael Richards on Sky Sports was talking about, but I look at the whole team, and Carragher was like, nope. No, none of that. Anything to do with this country, whether it's a player doing badly, stick up for them, and say that they're performing well even though they're not. If it's a manager in this country, or just any manager that's not even English, it can be any manager of any club, not allowed to criticise them. If you want more, you're not allowed. If you want to actually, have your club to be ambitious, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that. And I'm not going to go through this again and again next season. I'm not going to keep talking about be careful what you wish for. I'm not going to talk about David Moyes next season. What I'm seeing stuff in his interviews is ridiculous. So, here's what it is. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're new. Social media is up in the description if you want to follow me. The email for the inquiries. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.